has more than one participant, but writing has a single writer. So what does it mean? I need someone to explain this for me. What does it mean when we say that speech has more than one participant and writing has a single person writing? بس دقيقة خليني أجيب ورقة قلم. Again, what does it mean when we say that speech involves more than one participant and writing has single person writing? Su'al.
Yes, sir. No. I think it's the uninterrupted flow of words is written by a single author.
Okay, what about speech?
Speech, it's should be two, at least two persons, or two people.
Yes, exactly. Very good. Thank you, Saad. Ola Yasin?
Yes. Speak more than person and write single person.
Yes. Okay, very good. So it's the same idea here. In speech, we usually have more than one person talking, like different people talking. But in writing, most of the time we have a single person, just a single writer writing an essay or a paper or a message or a letter or any piece of writing. Sometimes you have two or more people co-authoring or co-writing together. But that's different. Usually we just have, it's just you writing, only you write. But in speaking, you don't speak alone. You usually speak with other people. So that's one of the features or one of the differences between speech and writing. So if I ask you to count them, you count them and you explain it like this. Okay? Okay, now number 2. Speech is inexplicit, but writing is explicit. What do you think? What do you think? What's your opinion? What do you think explicit is or means here? What do we mean when we say writing is explicit and speech is inexplicit? Okay. Yusuf?
Yes, well, speak is inexplicit because, when we speak, we're not clearly detailing and leaving no room for the conference or doubt. So it's inexplicit, but writing is more explicit and more formal when we write.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Yusuf.
Thank you, sir.
Shams, do you want to add something?
No, sir. Can I explain repeating?
No, I mean, do you have something to say about speech being inexplicit and writing being explicit?
No.
Okay, thank you. Fatima Abdi Hussein?
Yes, sir. Maybe when you talk about the explicit, we talk about the grammar, and the writing must be or should be explicit.
We're going to talk about the grammar later. The grammar لها نقطة خاصة اللي هي هاي النقطة الخاصة تلاحظين موجودة simple structure. But here it's something different, not grammar.
In the writing, you must write in the clear, but in speak must be not very clear as the write.
Okay. Yes, very good. So what's the meaning of the word explicit? If you check it in the dictionary, what's the meaning of explicit?
In Arabic?
حتى لو بالعربي ما في مشكلة.
يعني explicit يعني أستاذ صريح، بينما inexplicit يعني غير صريح أو غير واضح.
So explicit means clear, it means exact.
Clear, yes.
Okay? So now listen, thank you, Fatma. Listen, when I say writing is explicit, because writing is clear, writing is exact, writing is objective, writing is scientific, writing is precise, meticulous, and accurate. And writing follows rules. But speech doesn't follow rules. Speech is free. It's free. You can say anything. So it's free in grammar, free in words, free in style, free in tones and everything. It doesn't follow rules. And it's not very precise. In which form you present more facts and more details? Do you present more details when you speak in speech, in normal speech, or when you write an essay, for example? Of course, when you write an essay, you present more facts and more tools. Maybe you present an idea taken from a source, the internet or a book or a journal or something. So that's the idea here. When I say speech is inexplicit, because it's not so clear, it's not so exact, because it's free and it doesn't follow rules, the same rules followed by writers when they write. In writing, you follow rules because writing is more objective and more detailed, more precise, and more exact. So that's why writing is explicit and speech is inexplicit. Yes, Lemis, do you want to say something?
No, about repetitive.
Okay. قصدش على هاي الثالثة؟
Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, let's talk about the third point now. What does it mean when we say that speech is repetitive and writing is non-repetitive?
Repetitive is again and again, not only one, repeated, but writing only one, write only one, not this different about speech.
Okay, only one what?
One repeat.
Okay.
One write. يعني بمعنى يعني انه هي تكتب مره واحده لكن بالتلفظ راح تتكرر اكثر من مره. Again and again.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Lemis. Yes, what about the others? What do you think? Abbas Abdulillah, what do you think? Why do you think speech is repetitive and writing is non-repetitive?
Sir, when we talk, always we repeated many words. But
yes.
Writing, it's normally not repeated. It's good to be good words.
Only words, or maybe utterances?
Yes, utterances.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, very good. So in speech, that's the point. Okay, both of you are correct. So in speech, we usually repeat things, repeat words, and repeat parts of our speech. So we talk and then we repeat, and then we talk and we repeat. And a clear example about this is, remember what we said before in Arabic, sometimes we talk and then we say, first we say, شلونكم شخباركم, and then we talk. We keep talking and we choose a topic and then we go back to the same thing. شلونكم شخباركم, and then we talk and then شلونكم شخباركم. يعني مو لهالدرجة صورة من المبالغة, ولكن we repeat things. Not just this, but sometimes we repeat things just because we're not sure if we have been very clear or very exact, or if I have persuaded you. I'm not sure if I was so convincing. So I just keep repeating and repeating again and again. But in writing, I don't care. I don't care about you. I don't care about whether you will understand or not. I just write something very clear and I write it once. And then it's your job to understand it. So writing أنا ما يهمني أنت بعد تفهم أو لا. كتبة مرة واحدة وكتبة واضح وأنت بعد شغلك أنت تفهم هذا الكلام. So I just say it once. But in speech, when I have a conversation with someone, I sometimes repeat myself multiple times to make meaning clear and to be to the point. So that's the third point. That's why speech is repetitive and writing is non-repetitive. Okay. Any questions so far? Do we have questions about these 3 points?
No, it's clear.
No, sir.
Okay. Now let's talk about the other point here, which is fragments. Speech is fragmental. And in writing, we use full sentences. هاي واضح الفرق إن هنا أصلاً الجواب موجود. Speech it has fragments, has incomplete sentences. Sometimes, not all of the time. You know, sometimes we use complete sentences in speech. Look, when I talk about speech here, I'm not talking about public speaking or speech in a newscast by news announcers or so. ما جاي أحكي عن public speaking. مثلا رئيس دولة يلقي خطاب أو شخص معين مثلا يعني خطاب عام أمام جمهور، هذا الكلام الحلو جدا واللي يعني اللي يكون مزخرف بالجمل الكامله والمفردات القويه. No, I'm talking about the normal daily conversational style, the usual speech that you produce when you talk with other people in normal everyday life situations. So that speech is fragmental. We use incomplete sentences. But in writing, no, we always use full sentences. That's also one of the differences. Another difference is that a speech uses a simple structure. Yani, speech doesn't use finite clauses and non-finite clauses or verbless clauses or very complicated and compound sentences. No, speech relies or depends on simple structures like subject, verb, object, subject, verb, object, object, subject, verb, complement, subject, complement, subject, verb, object, complement. You know, these very easy sentence structures. But sometimes in writing, you can find a sentence that consists of 3 or 4 or maybe 5 lines. A very complicated, a very sophisticated, a very advanced and elaborate structures with more details. Because writing is more formal and more academic. فلأنه الكتابة تكون أصعب، شوف التراكيبها تكون أيضا أصعب. The last point is what? Is that speech uses common vocabulary, concrete vocabulary that you can see and touch, and you know, these very common vocabulary that we use in everyday life. Very easy vocabulary, very simple words. But in writing, we use common vocabulary, but we sometimes use less common vocabulary. More difficult words, more advanced and sophisticated words. Why? Because we have time to think in writing. Because we have time to think, we have time to choose the correct words. And we have time to choose or to form the exact structure and the full sentences and to avoid repetition and to be explicit. Because it follows rules. Opposite to speech, which is spontaneous, natural. It happens at the moment, without thinking. In speech, I may use the word amazing and wonderful, but in writing, I may use the word splendid and magnificent, which have the same meaning. In speech, I may use the word happy. When in writing, I may use the word blissful. So the words used in writing are less common words, less frequently used words. But in writing, in speech are common words, but in writing are less commonly used words. These are the main differences between speech and writing. Any questions?
Sorry, sir. Can you say that in speech we use common vocabulary because we want to abbreviation our speech and make our speech simple to not feel the other one who receive our speech in born? And in writing, we try. Yes, sir. In writing, we try to make our writing unique and interesting to make the other continue reading what we
That's exactly what we want to say here, Yusuf. Very good. That's exactly the point. In speech, we use common words because we want to keep our speech simple, and we want the other person to understand us easily. But in writing, because it's unique, because I want to, it's just like writing is just like painting or drawing a painting. You know, making a painting someone, or painting a landscape or a building or something. وكان واحد يرسم له لوحة. That's in writing. So you need to be more careful and be very selective and attentive to choosing less common words, difficult words, maybe complex words, because you want to make it unique and complicated. But in speech, because you want to make it simple, make sure that others will understand you. You just use common words.
Sir?
Mariam Yusuf.
So, sir, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Yusuf.
So why are we interested in writing when it's written in unique style? And in speech, when we speak in different words or different vocabulary, we get bored. Why?
We don't get bored. I didn't say we get bored. Look, we are interested in both speech and writing. I didn't say that we're interested only in speech. We're interested in speech and in writing, and both speech and writing affect the register or affect the style. So speech is not boring. It's up to you. You can make it boring and mechanical, and you can make it full of life. فأنت يعني من تريد يعني تحكي عن السبيتش، هذا صار بورينج بهاي الطريقة. هسه أنا من تكلمت بهالطريقة، هاي النغمة صار بورينج. ولكن من أنا أتكلم بنغمة ثانية، نغمة كلها بها طريقة، بها تنغيم وبها حياة وبها روح وبها emotions و feelings, then you can feel it. It will not be boring. It's up to you. The speaker is in control. It's you who can make it boring, and you who can make it alive.
So we can't.
The same thing with writing. Excuse me. The same thing with writing. Writing can be boring and can be very interesting. It depends on the person's and it depends on the individual's style. هاي البورينج والانترستنج لها علاقه يعني بالشخص نفسه والستايل مالته. بشوف احنا عندنا من تقرا شعر مثلا شعر حر عربي فصيح، من تقرا النزار قباني او مثلا تقرا الى غاده سمان او محمود درويش، او من تقرا الى احمد جاسم عبد الكاظم. من احمد جاسم عبد الكاظم ما ندري. اوكي، واحد يكتب شعر. هل احمد جاسم عبد الكاظم ما اعرف منه راح يكون نفس تاثير عليك انت كقارئ نفس تاثير نزار قباني ومحمود درويش وغاده سمان؟
No, sir.
No, because they have a different style. They may choose words more convincing, more powerful, more interesting, more unique, and more, words that have feelings and words that touch you. But Ahmed Jassim Abdel Kalam use boring words, not interesting words. Sometimes he uses interesting words, but most of the time his style is boring, not very touching, not very catching, not very interesting. So you will be affected by the other style, not this one. So both can be boring and both can be interesting. But we're interested in both speech and writing when we talk about sociolinguistics, because speech affects the style of someone and also writing affects the other style. But in writing, usually people use words which are difficult and complex words. Not like in speech. In speech, they depend on words that are simple, words that people use every day. When you talk with your family, you don't use words that you use in this classroom. Maybe in this classroom you use Pidgin and Creole and sociolinguistics, and you also use drama and poetry and novel and words related to drama, poetry, and novel. When you talk with university students in classrooms. But do you use these words when you talk with your family? No. When you talk with your family, you use other words which are simple, that you only need them when you talk about some general topics like food and politics and these other social and cultural matters. فانت تتكلم مع اشخاص عاديين تتكلم حسب المفردات البسيطه اللي انت تحتاجها. احيانا كلامك يتطلب استخدامك الى مفردات اقل تكرار، اقل استخدام depending on the topic. You're welcome. شمس كان عندك نقطة تحكين أعتقد.
Yes, sir. Can I say that is the speech is repetitive because I can't control of the speech. I don't have time to think. So I repeat. But in the writing, I have the time and I can control of my writing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Sometimes you don't have time in a speech, so you just repeat because you want to have some time to think. Yeah. So you repeat and you think then. You think of something and then you say it. Yes. So sometimes we repeat because we want to think of something to say and because we don't have time and we're not in control. But in writing you are in control and you have time, so you don't repeat things.
Yes.
And you're actually not allowed to repeat things in writing because writing follows rules.
Yeah.
فممكن واحد يقول زي استاذ والبارافريز مرات واحد يقول يكتب شيء باسلوبه وبعدين يعيده بطريقه ثانيه. No, that's not repetition. That's paraphrase, which is not the same thing. Yeah. مريم يوسف.
I write around times when I speak with the fragment and full sentence.
When you speak with what?
A fragment and full sentence.
Yes.
The speaker is interested in the meaning more than rule. For example, fragment use the specific rule or do not use the carbonation or in the writing. It's the interest in the grammar.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So in writing, we're interested in grammar and in structure. That's why we write in full sentences. But in speech, we're more interested in meaning. So sometimes it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if we make mistakes in the grammar because we're after meaning. We want to communicate an idea. We want to deliver a message. So even if we use incomplete sentences, that's okay. Yes.
نقدر نقول إن هم يختلفن بالفونيتيك أو فونولوجي نطق باعتبار
هو اكو هواي اختلافات. طبعا هو اكو هواي اختلافات. احنا ما ممكن نتحدث عن الفونولوجي when we talk about writing because writing uses letters, produces letters, and in speech we use sounds. اكو هواي اختلافات ولكن هاي الاختلافات البسيطه المعروفه احنا ما نشير لها، نشير للاختلافات الاخرى اللي هسه هاي ذكرناها. Like these are considered the main differences. Of course, in speech we don't use letters, we use sounds and we see the sounds. But in writing we use letters and we hear. In speech we use sounds and we hear the sounds. And in writing we use letters and we see the letters.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, now let's continue. Let's continue this chapter. Speech and writing, they both can be formal and informal. So we have formal speech, we have informal speech, remember? And we have formal writing and informal writing. But writing is more formal. Formal writing is more formal than formal speech. Again, formal writing is more formal than formal speech. writing يكون أكثر رسمية من الكلام. So that's why formal speech, we can say that formal speech has quite a lot in common with informal writing. يعني ممكن يشبه الفورمال speech بالinformal writing. يعني الكلام الرسمي ممكن يشبهه ببعض الخصائص متشابهة مع الكتابة غير الرسمية. لاحظوا الكتابة ايش قد قوية من ناحية الفورماليتي بحيث الكلام الرسمي يشبهها بالكتابة الغير رسمية. So writing is always stronger when we talk about formality or the formality scale. But both speech and writing can be formal. And speech can borrow features from writing. Writing can also borrow features from speech. يعني شنو borrow features؟ يعني ممكن السبيتش ياخذ هاي من الرايتنج ويكون non-repetitive. ممكن السبيتش ياخذ هاي من الرايتنج ويكون done with full sentences. It's possible. But most of the time it uses fragments and it's repetitive and it's inexplicit and so on. But it's possible for each one of them to borrow features from the other. So speech and writing, they both affect the speech styles of different people. They affect the registers of people. Remember, we said we have 3 factors affecting style: topic, formality, and medium. Okay. من عنده سؤال بعد؟ Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. I can, in the features of the speech, in the formal, I can, when I present something to the audience, I use the formal speech. So I use the full sentence and I don't repeat anything because it is formal and I present to the audience.
Yes, that's right. But this is not every day. We're not talking about these, these special kinds of speaking. We're not talking about presentations and public speaking. We're talking about normal speaking and the daily conversational style. That's something different related to public speaking. أنا شغلتكم الخطاب مال Charlie Chaplin.
No, sir.
Okay, I'll play a recording, a speech by Charlie Chaplin. You know Charlie Chaplin?
Yes.
He was, a comedian actor, an actor of comedy, and he was mute most of his life. He was mute, acting as a mute person. يعني يمثل صامت، تمثيل صامت. شلون مستر بين إجا بعده؟ Okay. But in one movie, which was The Great Dictator, he delivered a speech. And this speech is considered one of the most speeches, one of the greatest speeches in history ever. هذا الخطاب هو كان صامت كل حياته، ولكن من تكلم بالفيلم ألقى speech بحيث يعتبر هذا السبيتش من قوته اوكي وهو سبيتش يعني one of the greatest speeches ever. واحد من اهم الخطابات بالتاريخ، مو اهم واحد ولكن واحد من اهم الخطابات. حتى انا بحيث من قوته خليت يعني مره واحده من طالباتي بسنه من السنوات انه بحث مع التخرج يعني يكون على هذا الخطاب انه she examines why this speech is considered one of the greatest speeches in history. Depending on the way the speech is delivered and also its discourse. يعني مو فقط النص مالته كان مؤثر، وإنما طريقة إلقائها كانت مؤثرة. بس دقيقة خلي أشوف الرابط وين حتى تروح على وسيمكم وأشغل لكم الفيديو. واضحة تشوفون تسمعون الصوت؟
I don't want to be an emperor.
تسمعون الصوت؟
لا بس
ممكن ما راح تفهمون بعض الكلام. أنا بعدين راح أدزلكم السكريبت مالته التكست مالته فممكن أنتم تطلعون عليه. فالخطاب يعني really a great one. If you say it's nice, no, it's not nice. It's a great. It's really an outstanding speech. That's why it's considered one of the greatest speeches ever in history. Now, let's listen and watch. طبعا هاي الصور الفيديو الناس مركبة ماخذ لقطات من الصور to match it with the text.
I'm sorry. I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate or despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone. The good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man, nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
اوكي سوري لانه ما غلقت المايك، يجوز يتكرر صوت البعض منكم. عموما تقدرون تسمعون الخطاب. هذا الرابط مالته يعني you know it's a great speech and it's a formal speech. Okay, it's a kind of formal speech. Now this kind of speech is not the normal daily speaking style that we're talking about here. مو الكلام الطبيعي المعتاد اللي احنا دائما نستخدمه، اللي يكون به fragments، يكون به simple words. And no, this type of speaking is called public speaking, and it's more advanced and more formal. It uses full sentences, grammatical sentences, powerful sentences, you know, difficult words, advanced words, you know, elaborate structures. It has more details and more facts and everything. That's public speaking, which is different. But when we mention the differences between speech and writing, we're talking about normal writing and normal speech. But sometimes the speech can be very powerful, very, very, you know, impressive. Because in speech, we don't just use language, but we also use other features. Did you notice how he raises his volume sometimes, especially at the end of the sentence when he became more energetic and more enthusiastic, just to inspire others, to motivate others, to be to be more convincing. But at the beginning of the video, he was very compassionate, very quiet, talking with a very low tone. Then he uses his tone and utilized his tone successfully, employed it according to the goal that he was trying to accomplish. He was addressing soldiers. And it has very, very interesting expressions and phrases. One of them, which I really like very much, is the phrase which says, "We think too much and feel too little." We think too much and feel too little. That's an amazing phrase indeed. وبيها هواية عبارات ممكن تنطبق هواية حتى على واقعنا اللي نعيش فيه. نقول don't be like followers to dictators who treat you like cattle. يعني لا تمشي ورا الدكتاتور اللي يعاملك مثل القطيع، اللي يوكلك مثل ما يريد ويشربك مثل ما يريد ويستخدمك مثل ما يريد وكذا. فأمور صحيحة، يعني خطاب يعتبر تاريخي وواحد من أهم الخطابات because it can apply to all times and to all cultures and societies. Like machines, exactly, like machines. هذا الخطاب مالته. والنص بالنسبة للتكست هسه راح أشوف. التكست تلقوه بهذا الرابط. Yes, well, actually, they say happiness can be or can lie in the simple things that we do in every day, where we look for sadness and hate. That's right. We don't like happiness. We don't like love, and we feel shy to say I love you to someone, but we don't feel shy to say or ashamed to say I hate you to someone. That's our society. That's the culture in which we live. نشوف هواية أكو حزن وأكو خوف وأكو رعب بالحياة. موجودة هاي الأشياء حتى بغير المجتمعات، مو فقط عندنا، ولكن احنا عندنا تكثر. دائما الأشياء القاسية والصحيحة تكثر في مجتمعنا. Okay, ما أريد احنا نتحول إلى غير topic. I just want to cast some light on the idea that speech can be very formal and very strong, but we're not talking about this kind of speaking. We're talking about the type of normal speaking style which people use when they talk with each other on a daily basis. نكمل الفصل باقي بموضوع واحد فقط اللي هو social networks. Look, in brief and to be blunt and to cut to the chase, to be to the point, we have two types of social networks. One we call a high density network, and one we call a low density network. A high density network and a low density network. High density and low density. What is a high density social network? A high density social network means a place, a city or something, a place in which people live together and work together and say hi to each other and can contact each other frequently. مكان الناس تعيش به سوا، تشتغل سوا وتحتك مع بعضها سوا باستمرار على تواصل دائم. That's a high density network. مثلا منطقة معينة ناس تعيش بها ونفس الوقت تشتغل بها and they also contact each other. They see each other on a daily basis and they talk to each other every day. This is called a high density network. But a low density network is what? It's a place in which people live in one area but they work in another. فشوفهم عايشين في مكان and then they travel hundreds of kilometers to go to their work. And they they practice their social life in a different place also. وحياتهم الاجتماعية تشوفوها في مكان آخر مختلف عن المكانين. So that's a low density network. So two types of network. Now, why sociolinguists are interested in these types of networks? Because they want to see what kind of differences they might find. They might find within an office or a company. What linguistic differences in the communication repertoire, مخزون الكلام والنطق, they can find in a place. So it's also interesting for sociolinguists to know this. Yes. Any questions about social networks? A high density network. And so a high density network is like the university. If you go every day to the university and you meet your colleagues and your friends every day, you contact each other every day, and you spend so many hours together, and then you also live together in the same city, and you work together maybe, then that's called a high density network. But if you live in one area and then you work in another area which is far away from this one, and if you have less contact, low density. So we can say that high density is synonymous to much contact, and low density is synonymous to less contact. High density, much contact. Low density, less contact. Again, high density, much contact. Low density, less contact between people. واكو figure مهم, figure 10.3 in your book. You need to check it out. It explains the difference between a high density and a low density network. Now, before I finish, I just want to mention one last thing, which will be remain open and unanswered. It's a question that will remain open and unanswered. Just food for thought. Food for thought. Just think about this. Think about it, okay? And you can discuss it with each other. Food for thought. It's a nice expression used by Americans most of the time. Think of the social media programs. We also sometimes call them social networks, right? So think of Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter, WhatsApp, Snapchat, Telegram, Viper, and all of these social media programs and networks. Okay, what kinds of linguistic features we can analyze in these networks? And do they also have high density? Are all of them considered high density social networks or low density social networks? So I'll leave this to you, unanswered and open. You can discuss it with each other. That will be all. Any questions about today's lecture, students?
أستاذ يعني ما تريد تجاوب هسه؟
لا ما أريد أجاوب أصلا. هاي إلكم أنتم تناقشون.
أوكي.
يعني مو فد شيء أنتم مطالبين به، ولكن شيء للنقاش. Just think about this. That's it.
بس عندي سؤال أستاذ.
Yes.
I read the information that said written language is sometimes wrongly thought of as an ideal model for speech. What does it mean exactly here?
The written language is what? Sorry, can you repeat?
Written language is sometimes wrongly thought of as ideal model for speech.
Wrongly thought?
Yes.
Yes.
What do you mean wrongly thought? Like you you don't think correctly, or what?
I read this information in my book. I don't understand it. اكتبها لك بالشات.
Yeah, okay, كتبيها بالشات. Yes. طلاب بقية إذا ما عندكم سؤال اخذوا راحتكم يعني.
Can I add something, please?
Yes, go ahead.
I would to add something about the differences between speech and writing. In speech, we use simple syntax and structure and common words because we can simply convey the idea because our tone of speech and our fiction expression that help us to convey the idea to the other person or the other people easily. But when we write, we need our writing to be perfect as possible as we can, because that perfectionism is the only aspect to convey the idea to the other.
Yes, because we cannot use facial expressions and gestures and body language when we write. So we need to make it perfect and complicated.
Yes, this is in my opinion.
To convince the other person, to persuade the other person.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's exactly right. And I told you before, you know, in speech you can use tones. You can make your speech slow and fast, and you can make it high and low. I mean, in volume, you can raise your speech, you can lower your speech, and you can use body language and facial expressions and eye contact to make your speech clear. So you just say simple words, and you also depend on these factors. But in writing, no, you cannot use just simple words. You need to make your speech complex.
Yes, yeah. But that is. We cannot use it in the writing.
You cannot use it in writing. Yes, of course, you cannot use body language in writing. That's why you need to make writing, you know, more difficult and more advanced.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. الحضور صورت مريم. Yes, Saad. Now I got the idea. Written language is sometimes wrongly thought of as an ideal model of speech. If I say the writing is always better than speech, no. Like, look, we were talking about tones and body language now. Sometimes when I add tones and body language, I can be very expressive and very, you know, very in command of my language. Just like Charlie Chaplin now when he delivered his speech. He was great. Not just because he was using great words, but because he was great in delivering these words and presenting these words to the audience. You know, كان يعني بارع حتى بطريقة تقديمه للفكرة للمستمع. So the way he presented his facial expressions, his gestures, his eye contact, the volume of his speech, the tones, stress, hand movement, posture, and the way he stands. So if I say writing is always better than speech, this is wrong. And that's the meaning of this phrase. So we cannot say that writing is always ideal and it's the ideal form of communication. No, speech can be more ideal. Speech can be more, perfect than writing. But, when we talk about normal writing and normal speech, we have these differences that we have just mentioned today.
Yes, it means they are.
Yeah.
They are equally important.
Yes, they're equally important. Yeah, but they have differences.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yusuf, you have a question?
Yes, sir. It's related to our topic here, but it's not about the lecture.
Yeah.
But it's still about the social linguistic. So I'm wondering if social linguistic is also interesting in the people who have autism or people who have problems in psychology, and the sociable people, they have a way of communication. So
yeah. Yes, it's also interesting in all of these things. Look, I said before in the very first lecture in this year, we said linguistics is interdisciplinary, which means that linguistics linguistics interferes with all life disciplines. It interferes with physics, with biology, with music, with society, with psychology, with everything in life, with philosophy and technology and the legal system and crimes and everything. Actually, if you talk about autism and people who have some difficulties speaking, that's a different branch of linguistics, or maybe it's part of linguistics or part of sociolinguistics and also part of phonetics at the same time, and also phonology. It's called speech therapy. Speech therapy يعني علم أمراض or speech pathology علم أمراض الكلام. Speech pathology علم أمراض الكلام. It talks about how people find it difficult to talk. For example, some people find it difficult to راح اجي لي النقطه مالتك. Find it difficult to pronounce the sound or the consonant ر. فبعض احنا نشوف احنا وايد حتى عندنا يعني بيناتنا اوكي ناس تجد صعوبه في نطق صوت الر. فتسوي الر مثل الو. كان عندنا استاذ يدرسنا كان عنده مشكله بصوت الفاء اصلا. انا كان يصيح لي بيراس فتحي هيك كان يصيح لي ديبرنت. احنا كنا نصيح له ديبرنت ديفينيشن. فكان عنده مشكله بصوت الباء. الاستاذ الله يذكره بالخير موجود بعد حاليا، مو موجود بقسمنا يعني متقاعد هو. فهاي مشاكل النطق اكو علم خاص بدراستها اللي هي speech pathology. But when you talk about autism, you can also study it from a sociolinguistic aspect. If you want to examine the variety of people who suffer from autism and something related to society, then it's sociolinguistic. If you want you can make it psycholinguistics. واذا تريد انت ممكن تخليه psycholinguistics. شلون تاخذ شغله بدماغ هذول الاطفال على اللغه مالتهم او هم مثلا how do they retrieve words when they talk.
So
how do they remember the words? So it can be sociolinguistic, it can be psycholinguistic, it can be anything.
I can start to do some research about it, or it's something that everyone knows.
No, well, of course, that will be a very interesting field to study or to investigate. But you need to, of course, if you want to examine people who suffer from autism, you cannot just examine one person. You need to, gather some people who suffer from autism, and then you try to observe something like how they speak, what kind of words do they speak, what kind of social aspects do they practice, and how do you think these social aspects or social practices affect the varieties they produce.
Exactly, and I just asked this because I want to make sure that it's related to linguistics.
Yeah, it's related. It depends on your objectives, Yosef. If your objectives are related to the effects of society on language, that's sociolinguistic. They can be psycholinguistic, and they can be just social, and they can be just medical.
It can be both.
ممكن تكون طبية فقط أهدافك. ممكن تكون اجتماعية فقط. ممكن تكون اجتماعية